All right. So for this month's book session, we have Michael Zuber with us, who's the author of One Rental at a Time, the book club for this month. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us this evening. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to this. Since you told me this was going to be the book of the month, I've been looking forward to today. So feedback is always welcome. I wrote the book because I was hoping to create belief and hope that it's possible, right? That's why we did it. As I said in the book, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and then was lost. Like, okay, where do I go? So I tried to write something that, at least it was our story. It was our truth, the good and the bad. So hopefully that came through. And again, I look forward to this. So it should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was funny. I was just thinking about kind of reflecting about the book a few minutes ago, and I thought how it's so it's such a story. It's such a good story. And I think it was so tangible and so relatable. I think at least for myself, I'm sure for many others as well. It didn't sound like anything you did was beyond reach out of really any average person, which I think is really cool and really telling to just how repeatable the process is.
If that came through, I succeeded because there's nothing special about my story. I didn't have a silver spoon. I came from very modest beginnings. I was stupid until I was 30. I got comfortable sacrificing, lived below our means. We stayed at it for 15 years. I remember breaking down, as we wrote in the book, one time when we went to yet another housewarming party. The struggle's real. It took us 15 years. I think a lot of people can do it in less than 10. But our truth was 15, so I'm okay with that.
Awesome. And so what would you say, going back, having hindsight, how would you have done it in 10? How would you have done it better, faster?
Well, first off, I think I put this in the book. My biggest mistake is I didn't appreciate my cash in the beginning, right? I started with 40K and I was buying junk. So I had to put a down payment and then I had to fix it up. Where at the time, getting the loan was the easiest part. And there was competition, but it wasn't like competition today. I could have bought what now is called turnkey. Back then was just called clean, and used my capital much better and had a better yield, right? When you put 20% down and then you put another 10 or 15% into make ready, your yield gets hurt because the denominator of that calculation is cash. So that was my biggest mistake, because if we would have done that, we would have had, instead of 8, we might have had 15 when the bubble burst and we did our 1031s. And if the ratio was the same, we would have gone from, instead of 8 to 80, we would have gone from 15 to 150. And then who knows where we would have ended up. We could easily be double the size we are now if we didn't make that mistake.
Interesting. And so for those of you who are just joining us in the Zoom chat section, if you have a question, you can just say me and I'll call on you and you can ask Michael whatever question you have. Dean, awesome. Hop in there. What do you got?
All right. All right, great. Well, Michael, thanks again for joining us. I think this group can attest. I typically leave the books that I've read down to the last minute. This one I consumed within the first few days of the month. So I actually had to go back today to kind of remember a few of the points. But one of the sections you talk about is the signs of an overheating market. In your 15 years or 20, whatever, however long it's been now, have you seen it the way it is right now? It seems like we're in a recession, a technical recession. However, I was looking at Fresno real estate today, and it shows signs of overheating, and the market's hot again. Have you seen kind of this inverse relationship between the recession and the way housing's going?
Oh, absolutely. It's historically speaking, being in a recession does not mean housing goes down. I mean, it did happen obviously in the Great Recession. That's the one that everybody thinks about. But before that break, which I've studied, it was not always true, right? The dot-com era, other recessions. But have I seen anything like today? No. Today's a very special time. While I have nearly 20 years experience buying rental properties now, I've never invested in a pandemic. The Fed has never had $3 trillion of injection. We've never had 30-year mortgage rates below 3%. We've never had a rush out of the city, right? San Francisco, for example, to the suburbs. There are so many things going on today that are unusual. It actually makes me think that housing is going higher, not lower, even though we're in a recession. Because again, think about the folks most impacted by the recession. it's retail, it's restaurants, it's entertainment. And there'll be some cities that are smoked: Vegas, Miami, New York, San Francisco. But geography wise, we're having a little tilt on the US, and much of the suburbs are going to do quite well because the supply demand picture is all messed up. Where was all the building before? It was in the city. Well, where's the worst place to have units today? The city. Where do you want them? Out and about. So I think real estate goes higher. Again, the thing to track, again, just going back to Fresno and tying to the book, the thing that saved us in 07 or 08, whenever that happened, was the affordability index, right? Remember when I talked about it, everybody? The affordability in Fresno got below 20. I think it actually got to 14 if memory serves. I just checked this morning because I figured that'd be a topic. It's at 50. I got plenty of room. I did some rough math with interest rates below 3%. In the median today is about 330. Prices can go to about 430 to 450 before they're unaffordable. So Fresno has room to run. There's obviously two measures to affordability. One is price, one is interest rate. So, I mean, if interest rates went from 3 to 5%, housing would explode. I don't see that happening, but that's the other engine. So I think housing goes higher. I bet you Fresno's 10% up. I bet most suburbs a year from now are 10% higher, obviously with the vertical cities being the exceptions, because they're just going to be, vacancies and rental maps are going to go down in the big cities, I think.
Appreciate that. And if I may quickly, just a quick follow-up to that, what sector excites you right now? Is there, last time you said when things got too hot in Fresno, you went from single families to kind of the 5 to 10 units, and that was like your sweet spot.
Yep.
Is there something like that excites you now? Is single family, it seems like it's kind of on the rise quite rapidly now. Is there like a segment in real estate that excites you?
Yeah. So just to tie, so what happened between the publish of that book and today, I actually sold some multifamily in late 2019 because multifamily became too expensive, right? Cap rates got below 6% in Fresno, and Fresno's more like an 8 or 9 market, but Fresno got to 5 on Class C properties, which is just ridiculously priced, much like housing. So I sold some. We sold 3 apartment buildings in late 19, so we're sitting on some cash. What excites me today is still single family homes. I see in my future buying more single family homes today, and I own a bunch, because what I see happening in multifamily is just like what happened in 2007 or 8 is we will 1031 out of more expensive houses because they'll rise in prices, and we'll 1031 into multifamily. I think multifamily will have a ton of pain in about 12 to 24 months, right? Because it's extended and pretend, and everybody wants houses. They don't want apartments. I have managed apartments in a recession. It sucks. So I can see a lot of multifamilies coming back on the market at distressed prices, but it will be a 2021, 2022 problem. So I'm buying houses now. I'm buying anything residential, fourplex and below. You just got to buy it right. Today the market's hot, but you got to remember why it's hot. It's hot because of owner occupants, and it's hot because of owner occupants are 3.5% down. So if that's the lake that they're in, clean properties, median and below, just don't fish there. So where I told you right in the beginning, the first question was I should have bought turnkey. Now I can't buy turnkey because I can't overpay like owner occupants, but I can go buy junk because it doesn't qualify for lending. I can pay cash and then refi it later. So you just got to know where to go, right? If everybody's going clean, well, I'm going to just go over here. So I bought 2 properties so far during the pandemic, 1 triplex, 1 house. They're still there. There's still deals to be made. They're harder. You got to have a network. They're not always on the MLS, but I'm buying houses. I plan to buy 10 to 25 houses in the next 24 months.
Thank you, Michael.
Awesome. Vanessa was asking, just as a follow-up, how did you find the affordability index, Michael? Is that just a Google search?
Google. Yeah, Google. Yeah. And just so we're clear, I've learned since I've talked about this a lot that not every state does it the same way. I reference California Association of Realtors, CAR. They publish it monthly for all major metros in California. And just so you know, the scale is 0 to 100. Anything below 20 means only 1 in 5 people can buy. Below 10 means 1 in 10 people can buy. That's the ratio. So some states have a different ratio. So you have to learn your market. If you're in a different state and you can't use the California one, obviously, I would suggest looking at 2001, 2005, 2008, and 2010. That way you can get a feel for the bell curve in your market.
And is that, do you know, is that always on a national level produced by that state's association of realtors?
I've never looked at that hard, but every time I have found it, it has been on the state's realtor
Realtors.
side, but I can't
Okay.
say every.
Okay. Perfect. Nathan, you had a question.
I'm a little bit depressed because every time I hear Michael Zuber talk about San Francisco, which I live in an elevator building, and my wife owns a restaurant, so basically I'm screwed. But okay,
I'm sorry.
no.
I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time.
No. All joking aside, that is our situation. But all joking aside, one of the first things I think you say in the book, and I'm just wondering, given the audience you're talking to today,
Sure.
what's changed, if anything? But one of the first things you say in the book is something along the lines of, why would you invest in a place if you're not willing to travel there, or something like that? So i.e.
Yeah.
remote investing.
Yeah.
And you're talking to essentially a group of, predominantly remote investors here.
Sure.
I'm just curious what your thoughts are around that and what's changed.
No, I still believe it, but you got to remember. So this is really where it comes from. I have talked to so many people over the years that get enamored with cheap. Right. At the time, Detroit was the one everybody was talking about. Like, I'm talking Detroit 5 years ago when they were giving houses away for $1. Detroit. Right. And I must have had 1,000 conversations or emails or texts about $1 house in Detroit. And I'm like, great. When are you going to get on a plane to go see it? Like, I'm not going to Detroit. Well, why are you not going to Detroit? Oh my God, it's dangerous and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, why are you going to invest there? Right. So I think there's a difference between just being afraid of where you own property and the willingness to go. Right. I still believe that if you're going to be a landlord in any city across the country, you should go check on it. Right. And you should probably go see it once before you put $1 down. I think that's reasonable because, I mean, I've now been in Fresno 20 years and I've seen it change. I mean, I started, that first property I bought was in the Mayfair district. I wouldn't touch the Mayfair district in 2017 to 2020. But it was the best place to be in 2003. So you just got to watch it because it's very easy as an out-of-state investor to get snookered. I think you have to be willing to go there. And if you're afraid to go there, probably shouldn't put your money there. That was the point of that in the book.
Great. Amanda, you had a question.
I was asking about, you talked about scaling it and how fast you're scaling it and how much faster you would have scaled it had you had more properties to begin with when the crash came in 2008. Did this give you any issues, the quick growth?
No, because again, you got to remember, we had property management since day one because I was rarely in California when we were building it. I was doing my day job. So we had property managers. At that time, we actually had 2 different teams where our portfolio was split 50-50. My wife ran the books for us, so that was always a Saturday conversation. No, I mean, there was little things like our financial statements got more complicated when we filled out commercial loans versus residential loans. Insurance got more complicated as we went commercial versus residential. But no, I mean, I was always focused on securing capital in the next deal, and my wife was always focused on day-to-day operations. So we had pretty clear segregation of duty, and then we always talked Saturdays about what's going on both sides. So I was really lucky in that regard, where she did the day-to-day and I was looking forward.
So there was like no real point where as soon as you hit like this many properties and you wanted to grow to the next chunk, that it was like, hey, this is a totally different conversation with different people. No,
what I would tell you is my first apartment building was an eye-opener, right? So at the time we had houses and a duplex, but it was still a house, right? They were 2 independent houses on one lot. That first 5-unit building, which I referenced in the book, I assumed everything would be the same, but as I mentioned, I think later in the book, turns are higher, right? People, when you share walls, right? Because it's 5 units side by side, tenants don't always get along. That nuisance calls, kids crying, dogs barking, somebody's parked in my parking space, just the hassle factor goes higher. So what I learned on that first property is I should increase my expenses every month because I was stupid. I assumed the expenses for a 5-unit are the same as a house, and that's clearly wrong in hindsight. So that was eye-opening. I mean, I had lots of those experiences. The first time I bought a building over 13 units, 16 units. I was like, oh my God, what do you mean I have to have an on-site manager? What the hell's that about? Well, that's a California law. I'm like, God damn it. Now instead of having 18, rent checks, I have 17. And, there were lessons learned the whole time.
Thank you.
Sure, of course.
So Michael, I think you're kind of a prime candidate to ask as someone who's scaled numerous houses and is continuing to scale with numerous single families. I get the question all the time, hey, there's this 10 loan limit, 10 conforming Fannie Freddie loans. What did you do? Is that something you ran up against? How did you overcome?
So first off, I never had to hit it, right? I got to 10 in by 10, past 10 before that was a thing, right? So I was at 80 units when they started setting up these rules. So let's talk about that. So we have 80 units. The crash is happening, right? It's 2010. I think this is in the book. I go to my favorite bank who has all my money and most of my loans. And I go, I want another one. And they laugh at me. Well, they didn't laugh. They're like, sorry, we can't do it. Your risk, blah, blah, blah. I go across the street, literally across the street, Bank of America, another big bank's got a little bit of my money. And they were rude to me, right? They're like, nope, can't do it. You're the problem. Real estate investors are evil, blah, 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 blah. So I've experienced lots of changes in the market. So I was buying houses in 2010 without bank lending. I didn't get a bank loan from, I think I did one in 09, early 09, but I didn't do another one until 2019. We did hard money for a little while, then did a bunch of private money. Then we did commercial loans. So no residential. We did 6 refis right after I left my W-2 job to move equity around. But that was it. So basically you can get an 11th loan. You just have to pay higher interest. We did 6 cash out refis with a portfolio at the time of nearly 200 units at the time. But I had to pay 6.5%, right? I can't get I've never seen a mortgage at 2.9% like some of my investors have. So I'm very jealous of those first 10. You can get an 11th loan, but people want it to be the same rate. It's not going to be the same rate. It's going to be 6.5, 6 1/8, maybe today. It'll be over 6.
Sure. Great. And for those of you just joining us, if you have a question, just write into the chat section, me, and I'll call on you so it's not so tumultuous if everyone's speaking over each other. Michael, can you talk to us about the 620 program that you talk about in the book? Is that still going on? How's it been going?
Yeah, so what is it? So one of the things I quickly realized when I left is I was starting to flip some slumlord properties, right? I would buy the ugliest thing for as cheap as 40 grand. I think I bought one for 40 grand. I'll spend 40 to 80 grand on it. And then I'll put a tenant in, and then I would sell it turnkey to one of the friends in my network. What I quickly realized, even though I had a decent pile of cash, I can only do so many at a time. So like 2010, when I did this before, I just started talking to people. Hey, do you want to be a part of this? And lots of people said yes. Unlike 2010, where everybody was excited about double-digit interest rates, that's what they wanted, 10%. So I gave everybody 10%. This time they weren't excited by that. They wanted to participate in the upside. So after thinking about it for a while, I created something I now call the 6 and 20 program. The 6 is I pay 6% interest only, paid monthly. So if it's $100,000, I pay $500 a month for as long as I have the loan, right? Their first position. So they get $500. And then at the end, when I sell it, they get an audited report, and then they get 20% of the net profit, right? So if the profit's 30 grand, they get 6 grand on top of that. So they get piece of the upside, and people love it. The 6 and 20 program's a year long. Nothing has gone longer than 8 months. Nobody has averaged less than 25% when you annualize the return. It's very secure. I only do firsts. It's very secure. I pay for the repairs, unlike a lot of private money folks who beg for all the money. I don't need it. It's a wonderful program. The problem is I have a decent mile of cash, and getting deals done today is much slower, so I can fund almost everything I want to do. So I think I have 3 6 and 20 still going on. Those products are in escrow to sell. I haven't done a new 6 and 20 since February, I think, because buying deals during the pandemic has been slow, and I have cash to buy them. So, but yeah, the key here is you just got to document your track record, learn. And I've actually never asked for any money. I've never asked. People just, oh, what is that? I got money. Yeah. Hey, I got some money. I want to make 20 points. I want to have you in secured first position. I want to be on title. I want to be named in insurance. That sounds good to me. So yeah, it's a nice place to be. I'm lucky.
Yeah, I should say so. And so does that require then someone putting in 20% of the deal in order to take advantage of 20%?
No, let's give you a real example. So this is how it works. So I find a junky slumlord property. Let's just say it's 80 grand. what usually happens is I buy it first. We go through escrow, we close, I make sure all the liens are gone and all of that. Then I will go to my network and say, hey, Bob, you told me you want to do a loan, 6 and 20, I need 80 grand. We go through a second escrow, right? Because everything goes through escrow. They come in with 80 grand. They are named on insurance. They're now the loan on the house. I end up with like 78 grand or something because escrow fees and all of that, right? So I have 2 grand in the deal. Then what I do is I take the money and do all the repairs. So I spend 40 to 60 grand fixing it. Then I sell it. Let's say we sell it for 200 and let's remove transaction costs. So if I had 80 and then 60, it's 140. I made 60 grand. We're going to ignore everything else. I would give the investor 12 grand, 20% of the 60 grand profit in that simple example. They win because they get, roughly 20% annualized. I win because I get like 80% annualized, right? Because my money's only the repair money. So I get to do a lot more. I get to say yes to a lot more deals by having that flexibility. So I think it's a wonderful program for everyone involved. I don't have a day job. A lot of people that loan me money have day jobs. They can't look every day. They don't have 100 people in their market feeding them deals. So it's kind of a win-win. I just wish I could do more deals.
Awesome. Thanks. Dean, you had another question.
Yeah, this is not as sexy a topic, but LLCs. Mm-hmm. When did you first form your LLC? Was it when you moved from the residential into that 5 unit, or did you do that prior to that?
The very first LLC we had, yes, it was actually when we went commercial. Yeah, we set up our first LLC. The first eight properties were just in our name. I didn't know any better. But it was when we started going to meetups and we had some experience, we started learning about LLCs, and then you set up one. How, when you have one, do you need two? All of those conversations. But yeah, the first 5 years, we just bought in our name. We had an umbrella policy on top of it. But yeah, we have LLCs since then, but yeah.
And did you quit claim the other 8 properties into that LLC, or did you?
No, we did in the book, we did 1031. So we didn't bother moving the houses, but as the houses were sold and we 1031 into the apartments, those apartments ended up in the LLCs.
I see.
It was another transaction.
Great. It's a good way to do it.
Michael, you mentioned that in late 2019, you sold some apartment buildings and now you're sitting on some cash. So that was a straight sale. That was not a 1031. You were just looking to get a better cash position.
We, one building, we were lucky enough that a person in our network wanted to sell us 15 homes. So we did do a 1031 out of one of the apartments because you have to go bigger, right? Like, kind, bigger, all of that. So we did do that. But the other two, I wasn't going to do a marginal deal. I evaluated our tax position with depreciation and carry forward and all of that. And the tax hit would be negligible. It would be something, but it wouldn't be as bad. So we just took the cash.
Okay, great. And speaking of taxes, curious to know if there's any tips, tricks that you've used to maximize your tax incentives, tax advantages, understanding full well this is not professional tax advice, just curious to know what someone such as yourself has utilized over the years. Well,
first off, while I had a W-2 job, right, I made more than the limit. So I had $1 million plus carry forward loss, right? Because if you make over X a year in your W-2, you can't recognize depreciation and losses against your ordinary income. That sucks. My accountant could never get around it. So like lots of you, that was just a burden. And oh, by the way, I get hit by AMT all the time too, man. That sucked.
Can you mention what, because we read actually the Bigger Pockets book on advanced tax strategies, which talks a lot about what you're mentioning, but can you just define some of those terms for everybody here?
Yeah. Which one specifically? Sorry.
ENT.
AMT.
Oh, AMT, excuse me.
Yeah. Alternative minimum tax. I do not believe it is currently out there for individuals. I believe it was sunset by Mr. Trump, President Trump.
That is incorrect.
Oh, incorrect. Cool. And so it's still out there. My tax guy was
firsthand.
Awesome. So AMT, as I know it, the last time I saw it was in 2017, but I haven't had a job since then. So be it. Is basically the way the federal government makes sure you pay a certain amount of tax based on your income, because you have deductions and all of these things. If that comes out in your favor too much, they then do a second calculation and they go, hey, I'm just going to make up a number. You made 350 grand. Your alternative minimum tax is 125. And if your first tax return comes out, says you owe 87,000 or 90,000 to make it easier math, you're going to owe AMT 35 grand. And I owed AMT a lot of money, several different years. So yeah, AMT is not cool. And what really pisses me off is AMT is out there for people, but it ain't out for businesses. That really annoys me. So Amazon can make $11 billion and pay zero in taxes because they have all the loopholes. That annoys me a little bit, but yeah.
We could go on for hours. I'm sure we'll have to say that one for another session.
Yeah, it's okay.
So tax strategies that you tax strategies that you've utilized, you were starting to say.
Well, the one that is out there for married couples. We did not do this because my wife was employed the same time. But if you are a married couple and one of you, husband or wife, stays home, or maybe has a part-time job that doesn't make a lot of income, you can get the real estate professional. That's the one that's an olive branch for some people I speak with. I'm going to go from memory. So I think the minimum is 1,000 hours of documented, and the IRS will want it documented. And it has to be your main source of income, right? So that's what eliminated Olivia from claiming that, because she got paid fairly well. Anyways. So real estate professional is the one. If you are lucky enough to be in a situation where you're the main breadwinner, and your significant other stays home or whatever, it doesn't make a lot, that real estate professional is something you can hang your hat on. And that will allow you to take the depreciation or the losses against your income. But you obviously must be married. You must document the IRS. That is a big red flag, I've been told, for audits. So document hours, document hours, document hours.
Great. And have you ever utilized a cost segregation?
I've certainly looked at it. I've never bought anything big enough that really warranted it. Because again, I couldn't use it. When we were buying our apartments, cost segregation wouldn't have helped me, because I just would have been, oh, great, you get to carry forward more losses. Wonderful.
Yeah, more carry forward, yeah.
It wouldn't have helped. But I've certainly looked at it. I mean, I've done the math. I've done accelerated depreciation in the last year or so. That was something that was brought about by the Trump tax cuts. We've used that the last year or so. I think we used that last year to offset some gains. But yeah, so accelerated depreciation, I have used. Cost segregation, when we could have used it, it wasn't beneficial.
Okay. And Amanda was asking what a cost segregation study is. Do you want to define that for everybody?
Yeah, my experience with it allows you to, so basically when you buy you buy residential, I think it's 28 and a half years. If you buy commercial, it's 33 years. I think you could look it up.
27 and a half for residential, 39 for commercial.
Whatever. See, look at you guys. So it's a different number. But basically, let's just say it's 30 years for easy math, and you buy a $300,000 thing, and let's exclude land from the equation. So basically what depreciation allows you to do is you could take 10,000 a year in that example, right? 300 divided by 30. We're making it oversimplified. But what cost segregation allows you to do is it goes, hey, that $300 thing, everything doesn't depreciate equally, right? The structure, the roof, the ACs, the heating, the cooling, the paint, the floor, the carpet, you get to go in and you get to itemize, because some things have a 5 to 7 year life. Some things have a 7 to 10 year life. Some things have a 15 to 30 year life. So you can go and take that $300,000 and you could divide it up, figure out what percentage is what. And maybe instead of just doing a straight 10 grand, you might get 15 grand or 15.5 that first year. But then when you get closer to the year 15, you're no longer getting 10 grand, you're getting like 8,500. You're just front loading depreciation.
Yep. So it's a way to, it's a really great strategy. I just did 2 this past year. So it's a really good way to front load that depreciation. If you have a sale of a property that you're anticipating, so instead of having to 1031, you can have a really big chunk of loss that you can use to offset the gain that you've made from the sale. Or if you had a big income year, depending on what the IRS threshold is, it's just a really great strategy. And so we had an IRS tax specialist on the podcast, and we were asking him about cost segregation studies. And I was under the impression that they are mainly for people who have done rehab or big projects. And he said, no, if you buy a building, it has parts, and so we can break it up. So for everybody here who's buying properties, I think it's definitely worth a conversation with a cost segregation specialist just about how it might be able to benefit you.
Yeah. And what I've been told by some folks is if you're just doing houses or fourplexes or residential, they're not all that expensive, because he would just go in and put in the parts.
Right.
It's hundreds of dollars. But if you are doing an apartment building, it'll be thousands. I mean, it will be thousands, but it's worth it. I mean, one of the reasons I was able to sell apartment building and know that I would have a very negligible check I'd have to write is because of accelerated depreciation across other assets, right? I put in new windows, I put in new roofs, I put in these new things. So it was full on tax planning. I'm like, I don't want to 1031 that because I don't think there are any deals. What could I do? What can I do now that I was going to do later so that I could have the money now? So it's fun conversations.
Love it. Love it. So you talk in the book about wanting to help tons of people create passive income through real estate. How is that going? Well, give us an update there.
Yeah. One of the big things, it's interesting. I find myself getting the financial freedom, leaving a W-2. I've been out for 2.5, almost 3 years now. So it's clearly working. Because you go one of two ways when you get to my position. And again, I get this from all these other people because I always struggle, right? Class A guy, very competitive, blah, blah, blah. What do you want to do? Some people get where I am and they want to go bigger, right? They want to be the next Grant Cardone. I have no interest in that flash, any of that. So that's not me, right? I don't need a Ferrari. I already have my dream car. I don't need another one. I'm good. But now what I want to do is I want to create something that, is meaningful, that outlives me by 100 years. So I'm going to stay where I'm at. I'm going to reach down and pull as many people up as I can. And what I've quickly realized, if I can get people just to think about getting to 4, that's been game changing for me. Because the first 6 months or a year, it's like financial freedom, fire movement, sacrifice. People clap, they get all happy, but nobody does anything, right? Because it's too far away. It's 15 years, it's too far. But now I spend most of my time talking about how can we get you to 4? I believe if you get to 4 rental properties, it fundamentally changes your financial future. And if you only ever get to 4 and that's where you stop, I want to shake your hand, give you a hug, whatever it is, because you did something. If you get to 4 and you like it, well, shoot, go to 10. If you like 10, then go bigger. But now I spend a lot of time talking about 4, and it seems to be working. I'm a self-published author. We're selling, a couple hundred books a month. I have a YouTube channel now that's knocking on the door of 10,000 subscribers. I do 2 to 3 videos a day. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm going to keep doing it as long as I'm having fun. And near as I can tell, people are digging it. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Right on. Nathan, you had a question.
Yeah, I had a question back to the book, I guess. I think you talk about the North Drive property quite a bit in the book, right?
I do.
I was curious after, because I think it went from disastrous first purchase to better, and then it turned out okay.
Yeah.
What did you do different for the subsequent properties? What advice do you have?
We talk about that a lot.
Pausing because my internet's crappy right now. So
no, we got you. At least I got you. So again, so North Drive, horrible first experience, right? We buy it, we get all excited. Tenants move in, pay first month and deposit, and then we never get another penny. That's the story there. We sat for a while, right? We went in, we saw the destruction after they left. We saw the $15,000 bid, totally heartbroken. But we audited the process, and there's nothing we would have done different. We did everything right. It just happened to be a life event that you can't plan for. They went through a divorce, and the guy didn't take it well, and he turned into an alcoholic. He stopped going to work. He shut down. And I'm still thankful that because I was convinced 2.5 hour drive up there, right? Think about it. 2.5 hour drive to your first rental property that you've been told has been destroyed. Fuck. All right. We're just totally distraught. We get there, we evaluate it. It's worse than we expected, which is hard to believe. And then I get back in the car and, honey, what do you want to do? I expected her to say, sell that piece of blank. She's like, do we do it? Is there anything we did wrong? And I'm like, no, we did. She's like, well, okay, let's do it again. Right. Let's keep going. So she gets full credit for doing it. We've only had 2 experiences like that of the thousands of tenants we had. It's still funny to believe it was our first tenant. We had one a decade or 12 years later. But it's a cost of doing business. So no, we didn't have to change anything. We just had to swallow hard and keep moving forward.
So on the more of the soft side of things, I guess, right? What were you telling each other to keep going, right? Because you just experienced this and you're going to go into number 2.
Yeah.
Right. I'm no, that was a fucking disaster. Let's not do that again. Right.
So, yay. Yeah. So, I don't know, the beauty or the pain, right? So we find out, so let's just put months on this. Let's pretend they move in January 1st. So we don't get rent February 1st. By February 15th, we know there's a problem. We've done the 3-day notice because we're just all new to us, right? We don't know what the hell is going on, right? Okay, 15th, our property manager calls us saying we can't get a hold of him. Do you want a 3-day notice? I'm like, I thought you guys gave him a 3-day notice by the 8th. What the hell's going on? Yeah, give him a 3-day notice, right? So we're learning all the property management stuff at the same time. So the 15th comes, they go, hey, he's not paying. I say, okay, well, we're like 8 days away from the 1st. Let's see what happens. First comes and goes, nothing, file evictions. 60 days later, 75 days later, they're finally out. So we're down 4 months at this point. And then we're driving down there, right? I think we got pictures. I think we got pictures. I think they had to mail us pictures because I don't think we had smartphones at the time. I think they were Blackberries or something. Anyways, so we got pictures somehow, a couple, and we're going down. We're talking like, what do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. And we had talked a long time, and Olivia at this point was more comfortable than I was because I was nervous. I didn't know Fresno. It was my first rental experience. Nobody in my family had ever had any experience with this. I thought all tenants were going to be the same, and I was ready to pull the plug. But you got to remember, I had just come off a 6-figure loss in the stock market, so I was already defeated, right? I was expecting this to go bad, and Olivia thankfully had the other side of that, pulled us through. Then throughout the journey, there were times where she was down and I was up. So we were lucky to have each other. I don't recall a time where we were both negative together. We were able to ham and egg it together and keep moving forward. Enough good things started to happen by year 6 or 7 that we could see it. But again, we didn't really even have any meaningful cash flow until like year 8 or 9, because every time we got some, we bought something else and we had to repair it, right? So it's not like we were seeing the cash flow. We were paying for repairs out of it, so we stopped digging in our savings account. But yeah, we didn't really start seeing anything until that year Olivia retired and we slowed down buying. So it was really just constant communication, validating what we were doing, checking the processes, firing people. We fired the first property manager like 6 months later. We went through 5 property managers those first 5 or 6 years. So we started holding other people to our expectations. We stopped accepting words. We started doing, what was important for us, we started driving down there without telling them we were coming. It's amazing what happens when you go down Saturday and you tell them you're coming, and then you go down next Saturday and you don't tell them you're coming. Wow, that was eye-opening. That caused somebody to get fired. Yeah, it is your portfolio, so you've got to talk. You've got to. Bad news doesn't get better with age. You've got to talk about it, right? You just got to talk about it. You swallow hard and talk.
Such great advice. And you mentioned evaluating the decisions that you made. And there was a Bigger Pockets podcast where they had a poker player on, and they were talking about this very thing is, in poker, there's mathematical statistics and likelihood of things happening. Mm-hmm. All you can do is evaluate the decision-making process. Yep. The outcome is the outcome. And we don't really have control over that. All we can control is our decision-making. So
yeah,
I love that.
Bad beats happen.
Yep. Yeah, and people do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, that's something you're going to learn. I thought the first 5 years it was all about the magic spreadsheet, right? I have an accounting degree, economics focus, and an MBA. So I figured I could create the master spreadsheet. Stupidest thing I ever did, wasting all that time. The spreadsheet's simple. What's the expected yearly cash flow? What's out-of-pocket cash? Give me the yield. Let's go. I mean, it's that simple now.
Next property.
Next property, move forward. So yeah, it's about people is I guess where I was going. It's not the spreadsheet. Grow your network. I mean, most of my deals today come from my network. As I wrote about in the book, we built our entire portfolio out of the MLS. I mean, that drives people crazy. What do you mean? Bought it out of the MLS. I did. I didn't know any better. There was no direct mail. There was no robo dialing. There were no driving for dollars. I mean, come on, right? We didn't have those apps when I was doing this thing. It's so much easier today, but you can't be lazy. Grow your network. Try to meet one new person a day in whatever market you're choosing. It'll be amazing what happens in 6 months.
Fantastic. You mentioned having this really bad experience with the first tenant, and then you've had thousands of other tenants that have been seemingly fine. Mm-hmm. What was the process like? Did you do anything differently? Is that you attribute it to management? Why did you have such great tenants down the road, but this one happened to be kind of a...
Yeah. So first and foremost, I believe once you say yes to a tenant, they've gone through a criteria. So you've got to make sure your criteria box is tight. And in fairness, this one tenant met the criteria. To be clear, let's just round that out. They went through a life event where they went through a divorce. There's no box I've ever seen on an application that says, how's your home life, right? Are you thinking about divorce, right? That box doesn't exist. It's probably illegal to ask.
Right.
It doesn't exist, right? So there's nothing I could have done in the process to have identified that this husband and wife were 2 weeks away from separating. I had to live with the consequences.
Right.
Now, the fact that they were willing to move and then she was willing to move 2 weeks later, that's a different conversation, but I'm not here to judge that, right? What people do is what people do. So you got to create a tight box. And I fundamentally believe, and I have years of experience to prove it, that somewhere between 95 and 98% of tenants are just awesome. They want a safe and secure place to live. They want it fixed when they call on a maintenance item. As long as you're good to them, they will be good to you. Then there's, 1% that need to be reminded that rents do because they forget. And then there's 1% that want to get something for free, and they'll do all kinds of things. And there are professional tenants who try to work the process to get 8 to 10 months free rent all the time. They're out there. But again, remember, 95 to 98% are awesome people that just want a safe, well taken care of place to raise their family. And I think a tight tenant selection gives you a better quantity of opportunity to get those. And yeah, that's why we fix everything when it's called. We go over and beyond fixing things because it's the right thing to do.
Great. And so as part of your property management selection process, was what their criteria for selecting tenants was that part of the calculation for determining whether or not you would work with them?
Work with the property manager?
Yeah.
Well, it has become, but in the beginning I had no idea. I just said yes to the first one that returned my phone call. That's I remember.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, you're the first one to call me back. You must be responsive. Yeah, but no. And again, you got to work with your property manager. I now obviously have a portfolio size where I have a direct contact. And that was the first thing we did is we set it up, right? What's your standard? Well, this is what I want. Because that's the only thing I can control. I can control the box. And then we have to say yes to whoever's in the box, right? You can't discriminate. It's not cool.
Right.
So I got the box, right? What's the income threshold? What's the credit score? Can they have an eviction on their history? All that stuff that we can put in the box legally, we put in the box. And then we just say yes to the first one that hits it.
Great. Dean, you had another question.
Yes, I have many questions, and I know I'm speaking a lot here. But Michael, one of the big themes in your book, which I wanted to touch on, is don't buy alligator properties.
Yeah.
I think it's the only visual you have in your book is that
it's the
picture of
only
the alligator
illustration.
eating cash. At the end of the day, it's obviously your pro forma has to be padded conservatively to try and avoid that. I guess two questions. Have you ever unintentionally purchased an alligator property by thinking it was cash flowing, but it turned out your metrics are just completely wrong? And the second question is, how do you structure your pro forma? Do you use the same kind of metrics each time for the property class?
So the only time I've got an alligator property, I think I mentioned in the book when I did a cash out refi because I thought the bank was conservative and they weren't. My mortgage payment was more than the rent, which meant that every month I was going to reach into my savings account to pay for the property. That's dumb, right? So don't do cash out refis like that. I don't think I've ever bought a property that actually turned to be an alligator property. It's been close. That first 5-unit building, those first couple of years, because I didn't have the expenses correct, it was close to being a negative cash flow, but it was just not as positive. It was frankly a bad deal in hindsight, but I didn't know any better. And it's worked out since then. But yeah, I mean, I've had my numbers wrong. Anytime you go from one asset class to another one, you really need to double check your numbers, talk to other people, because that hurt bad, right? Putting the same ratios and expenses from a house onto a 5-unit building when it's fundamentally different. And I just didn't know any better. But yeah, today when I evaluate properties, I do A, B, and C because I look online all the time. A means turnkey. C means 20 to 40 grand. And then B is somewhere in between, right? B is, carpet paint, something like that, where C is new kitchen, new bath, right? Kind of the difference. And that's good enough in the beginning, right? Because all I'm trying to do is figure out what's going to be my total outlay of cash. And then if it meets my minimum, I'll dig deeper and find it out. So I can evaluate a property in 30 to 45 seconds just with that simplicity, right? Purchase price, expected down payment, closing costs, expected make ready, A, B, or C, 0, 10 to 20, expected rent minus all my expenses. I just go for yield. That's the thing I use. I think I talked about in the book. What's the yield on the property?
Do you just get that? Is that just off your experience? Because when I look at pictures, I see an older kitchen. I'm like, I have no idea what is this, like a $10,000 fix or a $40,000 fix? And do you use like try and find the underlying Redfin or Zillow, trying to find if it has like a crawl space to figure out if you can put an HVAC system in there? Is this just based on experience? You get a better understanding of the numbers.
The more you do them, the more experience you get. I actually have a general contractor on my YouTube channel that goes down roof to foundation, all the expenses. Now, keep in mind they're Fresno, California, but as you go through the video for doing that, that's the kind of logic you should build with somebody in whatever city or state you're going to, because houses all have the same stuff, right? So if you can break down her video into the chunks of this new location, get a GC or two to give you a bid. And even if you build them sporadically, right? Get 2 roof bids. Okay, good. I got the roof goes from here to here. Windows. What does a window cost? Well, does it go up and down, side to side? Is it 2x2? Is it 4x4? You'll build it up over time. But in the beginning, when you're just researching, don't go down to the gnat's ass. Close enough. Because all you're looking at the beginning is which of these 5 properties is the best deal that warrants more research. Then you do more research here. And then if you find something that takes number 1 to number 4, then you research the next one. And you do that over and over and over again. And pretty soon you have, history. I have looked every day, guys, for 20 years. Don't talk to me about, hey, I've looked at 10 properties. Fuck you. I look at 10 properties before 7 a.m. Jesus Christ.
It's such a good point. I think that so many people look for the results yesterday, and it's like, but you haven't done anything.
You've done anything yet.
Yeah. I don't, why are you expecting a free lunch? It's just not fair to the people that have done the work.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
Dean, that's a great point about the alligators that I wanted to bring up with you, Michael. So if I've got a property, cash flows $100 a month,
okay.
I refi, cash out refi. Now it's gone negative $50 a month. And I'm going to go buy a new property that's going to yield me $250 a month in cash flow. Mm-hmm. Cumulative, sum greater than the sum of the parts. Mm-hmm. Would you do it or no?
No, I would never do it.
Still never.
Never, because I lived through the downturn, and this is what happens. You go through the downturn. Let's just say you have a $200K mortgage on a 240 house. Then that 240 house is 200, and that 200 house is 160, and then it's 140, then it's 130. Pretty soon you're like, I'm walking away. But if it's truly cash flowing, you will never walk away. The only time people think about strategic default is when it's an alligator, right? I had properties that were upside down, but they cash flowed $1,500 a month. I wasn't going to walk away with $1,500 a month. I didn't care. My mortgage wasn't going to get called. Okay. So no, I would never, I don't believe in that math. I think you're setting yourself up for a fallacy, and you're risking that one asset's that over encumbered. So I wouldn't do it. But lots of people do. Don't get me wrong. Lots of people do the combo math. Oh, I bought Main Street with I don't know, A Street. Together, it's whole. No, it's not. Main Street still sucks.
Tips. Great tips. So curious to know about your depression when you went through when you walked away from your job or ran away. I don't know if it, you talk about it in the book, but can you walk us through what that was like? Yeah.
So as an individual, I've always been glasses half full. I've always been leaning forward. I've always been a positive person. It's the only thing you could, as a salesperson, if you let negativity build up, you won't be in the business forever. I was a salesperson that constantly exceeded their numbers. So I was generally positive, right? Even if we lost, I'd be like, great, what did we learn? Let's go forward. Let's get them next time. Go. So, okay. So I go to work. I don't remember what day it was, February 1st of whatever year it was. Find out that my sales job had changed. They matched me with the one person I couldn't stand, which, oh, by the way, in fairness, he can't stand me either. So the feeling is mutual, right? He thinks I'm a blowhard just as much as I think he is. So I remember going into the meeting going, this isn't going to work out. Give me a package. I'm gone. So that, takes what it takes, and I'm gone. So then I spend 2 days calling everybody and their brother going, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm out. And then it goes, so I think I'm out till I'm retired, right? Everybody's happy for me. My face hurts from smiling. And then I wake up like 4 days later, because I still get up ridiculously early. I was up at 6 a.m. again today. And I'm
because
like,
you got to look at 10 properties before 7 a.m.
Yeah, before 7, exactly. But I'm like, what the hell? I feel incomplete. I'm 45 and I'm like, I'm starting to tell myself I'm a loser. And this is after sacrificing for 15 years and, working 100-hour weeks sometimes. And I'm here sitting telling myself I'm a loser because at 11 o'clock, I got nothing to do. That was brutal. It was definitely depression. It got worse and worse for a couple of weeks. And lots of people have been calling me because I updated LinkedIn and like, hey, come work for me, come do this, come lead this team, blah, blah, blah. And I remember talking to Olivia like on a weekend going, I got to figure something out or I'm just going to get a job because this is now unhealthy, right? I didn't do all of this to hate my life. So that's when it hit me. Once I rationalized that, damn it, on Monday, I'm going to say yes to a job. It gave me clarity for Saturday and Sunday to figure something out. And that's when I figured out that I wanted to write one rental at a time. That's where that passion came from. That led to, you know what? You got a story to tell. Let's see if people dig it. So let's try YouTube. I had no Facebook. I had no social media presence other than LinkedIn, nothing. Like, I just didn't care. And I'm like, well, okay, let's go see if we can help some people. And that's been enough, right? I get all of that done typically by 11 a.m. now, 6 to 11, helping, creating new content, moving forward. Then I go work out. Then Olivia and I go off and do whatever we want in the afternoon, which used to be mean go out, but now it just means we stay home because of this stupid pandemic. But no, life is much better. Helping people has filled my cup. I've now been doing it long enough where people bought multiple properties and thanked me. And it's a nice place to be and know that I have the flexibility. We haven't increased our monthly expenses. We still live very modestly. I have no complaints now, but that was so unexpected. I look back at that now going, wow, I get depression now. I can get why some people get suicidal when they lose their thing, right? I've been driven forever. I've had a job. I've had one job since I was 13, no breaks, multiple times. I had 2 or 3 jobs. So I'm a hustler. Go cold turkey like that out of the blue. Man, that almost killed me. That was rough.
A little bit of withdrawal symptoms, sounds like.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are just about wrapping up and I'll be very conscious of your time, Michael. But as speaking to a group of relatively new investors, some more seasoned than others, what advice would you give?
I would tell you to keep at it. Real estate markets are cyclical. What we are going through now, at least in most markets where lack of supply, because owner occupants are buying, this will change. There will be some more inventory hitting the market when forbearance give up, when those happen. So be ready, learn your market, always be looking. That's another thing that I wanted to come, if it doesn't come through in a book, you always got to be looking, whether you have money or not. I believe the only thing you need to learn is what is a good or great deal in your market, right? Every piece of property is either bad, average, good, or great. And just like Warren Buffett says, you only have to say yes to a couple. So you should only do good or great deals. Don't be in a rush. Don't overpay. Don't get in bidding wars. I have walked away from deals for as little as $5,000. I'm like, no, $5,000 takes it from a good deal to an average deal. And I don't do average deals. Let somebody else overpay. So yeah, there's always another deal. I do believe also that the deal of the year or the deal of the decade comes around once a year, right? You just got to be looking for it. You got to be creative, seller financing, owner financing, private capital, whatever it is. Yeah, I do believe the deal of the decade comes around once a year if you're looking. So be open to the idea. I believe your network is important. I could probably look at each of yours 5 closest friend and tell you if you're going to be in real estate in 3 years. Because if your friends are playing video games and smoking pot and doing all those things, you might be hot on real estate today, but you won't be hot on real estate in 18 months unless you change your friends. And most people don't change their friends. Yeah. And lastly, real estate's worth it. I wasn't sure after 8 or 9 years if it was worth it. But now my wife's been out for 5 years. I've been out for 2.5 years. We paid for our daughter's education with a check. We bought a place in New York for her to live in. I have the car of my dreams. My wife has the kitchen of her dreams. It's all worth it. But you got to wait. You got to pay your dues. You got to, it takes time, but it is worth it.
Awesome. Well, any final questions before we let Michael out of here?
I'm willing to go as long as you guys have questions. So you don't have to cut it off at 6 for me.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, John, is that a hand raise? You're still muted, John.
I was trying to type just to say thank you to Michael, but typing's blocked for me for some reason.
You're welcome.
No worries.
And I really enjoyed the book, by the way.
Awesome.
Great
Make sure you guys go leave
listen.
a 5-star review.
We'll do for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything else for Michael? Awesome.
Really quick, tell us your YouTube channel name.
Oh, I'm sorry. One rental at a time.
You're almost at your goal, Michael, at 10,000 followers, I see. You're at 9,007.
Yes, heading there. Hopefully get there by the end of the year.
Let's go tip the scales, everybody. Let's make it happen. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. Great book. Thank you. And always a pleasure to speak with you, and looking forward to doing it again soon. I'm sure another podcast.
I look forward to it. Make sure you get me this video because it was a lot of fun. I appreciated it.
Will do.
Take care.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.